Picture the most effective person you have ever worked with. The one who solves the bottleneck, builds the strategy, and actually moves the needle. Now think about where they are when the office throws a mandatory birthday party in the break room. They are usually nowhere to be found. They clock in, they execute flawless work, and at the end of the day, they vanish. They do not join the weekend group chat. They do not go to the Thursday happy hour. They actively refuse to blend their personal life with their economic life. The group always misdiagnoses this. The group looks at the high performer walking out the door and assumes they lack social skills. Or worse, the group assumes the quiet person is arrogant and thinks they are superior. But the group is wrong. Highly intelligent people do not avoid office friendships because they are bad at socializing. They avoid them because they are running a completely different calculation. They see the exact same office environment everyone else sees, but they recognize a hidden cost to those friendships that most people do not notice until it is too late. To understand what they see, you have to look at how your brain actually funds your relationships. Your emotional bandwidth is not infinite. It is a strictly limited resource. Every time you invest emotional energy into a relationship, you are spending a piece of a very finite biological budget. Think of it exactly like a bank account. You only have a certain amount of capital to deploy each day. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar proved this years ago. He mapped out that due to the physical size of our brain, a human being can only maintain about 150 stable social relationships. That is your absolute limit. Out of those 150, only about 5 can be close friends. Only about 15 can be good friends. Most people let their environment dictate how they spend that budget. If they sit next to someone for 8 hours a day, they default to treating them like a friend. It is an accident of geography. But highly intelligent people treat their emotional bandwidth the same way a business treats its operating capital. They refuse to spend it on accidental proximity. They look at the forced environment of a company and make a deliberate choice. They choose to save their 5 close slots and their 15 good slots for people they actually selected in the real world. People who share their core values, not just their corporate logo. But preserving bandwidth is just the baseline. The real reason smart people opt out of office friendships gets much darker. It comes down to a fundamental conflict of interest between what a friendship requires and what a corporation demands. Think about the mechanics of a real friendship. A real friendship requires vulnerability. It requires you to admit when you are struggling, to vent your frustrations, and to expose your flaws. The currency of friendship is total transparency. Now look at the mechanics of a corporation. A corporation is an economic hierarchy. It runs on leverage, performance metrics, and competition. When you make a real friend at work, you are combining two incompatible systems. You are handing vulnerable personal information to someone who operates inside a system designed to exploit leverage. What happens when the company experiences a massive downturn? What happens when there is only one promotion available and both of you need it? What happens when the management culture turns toxic and your best friend suddenly becomes your direct manager? Smart people know that corporate structures can turn a confidant into a competitor overnight. They do not avoid office friendships because they distrust people. They avoid them because they understand the rules of the game. They refuse to build a genuine emotional connection on top of a fragile economic fault line. If you want to see exactly how dangerous this gets when people ignore the rules, look at the documented collapse of companies built entirely on forced friendships. Take the infamous rise and fall of WeWork. Their entire corporate culture was heavily engineered around the idea of community and family. Employees were pushed into mandatory summer camps, late-night tequila shots, and weekend retreats. Work and social life were deliberately blurred into one massive, inescapable group chat. The groupthink became so incredibly strong that nobody inside the bubble felt comfortable questioning the catastrophic financial decisions the leadership was making. The people working there accepted lower pay and grinding hours because they felt like they were part of a movement. They traded their objective judgment and their financial security for forced friendships. When the company eventually imploded, the employees who treated the business like a family were left with worthless equity and no jobs. The culture of friendship was not a perk. It was a calculated tool used to extract maximum labor for minimum cost. But the moment you decide to opt out of that culture and protect yourself, you trigger a new, highly dangerous mechanism. You become a target. Managers rely heavily on emotional leverage to keep people in line. When a toxic manager realizes they cannot manipulate you, everything changes. If you do not care about the title of Employee of the Month, the team pizza party, or the guilt trip about letting the family down, they lose their power over you. To a corporate structure built on groupthink, an employee who only cares about the economic transaction is an active threat. Management will start labeling you. You will hear phrases like not a team player or lacking cultural fit during your performance reviews. They will actively try to penalize you for setting a boundary. So how does the quiet professional survive when the system actively turns against them? They change the currency. If you refuse to use social leverage, you have to replace it entirely with economic leverage. You become bulletproof not by making friends, but by becoming undeniably competent. The smart employee makes the company mathematically dependent on their specific, high-level output. You build a skill set so sharp that replacing you becomes a massive financial liability for the business. You force the company to deal with you strictly on a balance sheet. They might not invite you to the weekend retreat, but they also cannot afford to fire you. You trade the fragile safety of being liked for the absolute security of being needed. This requires a brutal level of self-awareness. You cannot be the quiet employee and also be mediocre at your job. If you are going to opt out of the social protection, your work has to be flawless. But once you achieve that security, you uncover the final and most heavily guarded secret of the corporate office. You finally realize why the group truly resents you. It has nothing to do with you being cold or antisocial. It is because you are a walking mirror. Look at the people gossiping about you in the break room. They have sacrificed everything for the company. They gave up their evenings. They ignored their real families. They faked laughs for the boss and stressed over every minor shift in office politics. They did all of this because they were terrified. They fully believed the lie that the corporation required their soul in exchange for a paycheck. And then you show up. You do not fake anything. You do not laugh at the bad jokes. You leave at 5 o'clock sharp. And you still get paid. You do not just break their rules. You prove their rules were always fake. When they look at you, they do not see a bad team player. They see walking proof that their sacrifices were completely unnecessary. Their anger is not actually directed at you. Their anger is just disguised regret. They are lashing out because you forced them to realize they traded their real lives for a pizza party and a fake family, while you kept yours. So look around your own office tomorrow. The people exhausting themselves to play the corporate social game are not winning. They are just trapped inside a cage they helped build. The smartest thing you can do is let them have it. Let them keep the office drama. Let them keep the title of best work friend. You traded the illusion of a corporate family for the reality of total personal freedom. If you are the one skipping the forced fun to protect your peace, let me know in the comments. Tell me the exact moment you realized the office family was a trap. Subscribe if you want to keep dissecting the invisible rules that run your life. See you in the next one.